people who, have generationally, they've been, have acquired generational wealth where, let's say, for example, the grandkid or the great grand child of Rockefeller may not have necessarily the need or is required to, let's say, work a part-time job while attending college or while attending university, right? It's not me trying to assume, it's just me putting the pieces together. If my great grandfather was a billionaire, and granted that it was his wisdom and his intelligence and his wherewithal that has enabled him to acquire such wealth, that he would also know how to keep it, right? But then again, I could be wrong because you just never know. So with that being said, you would think that that things were set up, generationally, so that this wealth remains a lasting legacy and continues to be the facilitator and sustainer of the work that this individual did while being alive. And part of you sustaining your legacy is setting up generational blessings or generational wealth for your seeds, right? For your descendants. And so I would think that if an individual has acquired a mass sum of wealth, that this wealth has been allocated, whether it's through inheritances or whatever, to be able to, again, keep the individuals within the bloodline kept in that they don't have to worry about certain things that the average person will have to worry about. So I say all this to say is that, when you have your means, things that you would have to have met, the needs that you would have to have met, when you have these things covered, right, then you can take your time and your energy and focus it on things that are more beneficial towards your personal development. I believe that when your energy is spent worrying about bills, when your energy is spent worrying about how your needs are going to be met, it's going to be very hard and, quite frankly, impossible for you to be creative and for you to just be productive intellectually, creatively, mentally, and even physically, right? People always say, not always, but a lot of people have expressed the term or the sentence or the phrase that money is not everything, and you don't need a lot of money because without if you don't have health, if you don't have strength, what is money going to do? Very true, very true. There are things money can't buy. However, there are a lot of things that money can buy, and while it may not solve a lot of your problems, it can and will solve a lot of the problems that you're dealing with now that you wouldn't have to deal with granted you had money. So this narrative or rhetoric about, concepts of money, that to me comes from an ignorant place. It comes from a place that, people really haven't really experienced wealth or haven't experienced the positive side of wealth, right? Most times when people talk about money, they talk about it from a negative place, right? So this is where you have the idea that people are afraid of being successful because of this, another saying, you hear it a lot. And I think, there's a song, right, by the Notorious B.I.G., More Money, More Problems, right? And, it's like, that may be true, right? And oftentimes you'd have to have your own personal experience to know what that means. But guess what? Just because, it's more money, more problems, doesn't mean that there isn't more problems currently right now. As someone who is having financial problems or who is poor or who, is struggling financially, right? So you have to, get to the point where you're picking your battles. You have to really be able to think for yourself and really evaluate your life and see, okay, well, this situation hasn't been working too well for me.